Hi, it's David Rizzo from Rogers Gardens, and today we're going to be talking about April in the garden. So what we're going to be doing this month in the garden, from the planting the perennials, the vegetables, the annuals, fertilizing, everything. April, we're doing a really fun event. It's the Herb Festival, so that's April 3rd to April 12th, and so we'll bring in a ton of herbs, basil, parsley, mint. It's a really big event, and it's a really fun event because you see so many varieties of the herbs. So come in and join us for that event. That event is so fun because we bring in so many different varieties of herbs. Now, we're really going into the vegetables. This year's been very warm, so we really are getting off to a quick start with the vegetables. So right now, I'm doing all my tomatoes. I'm a big fan of heirlooms, so this is Cherokee Purple. I love Cherokee Purple. I like some of the big red slicers, red-black slicers. So Cherokee Purple, I like Pink Berkeley Tie-Dye. There's Carbon. Some of the really good cherry tomatoes like Sun Gold Cherry, and then you have Sun Sugar, and you have Super Sweet 100, and there's some really good cherries. There's some good smaller slicing tomatoes too, like San Francisco Fog and Legend and Jet Setter, and there's red heirlooms like the Mortgage Lifters. So now's the time to do your tomatoes, and make sure you put them in a bigger pot. A lot of people are saying, oh, I could use a little pot. If you want them to keep fruiting through the summer, you got to do a medium-sized pot about 17 inches wide and about 17, 18 inches deep. It's really crucial. And use a good potting soil like a Malibu and drainage, but always full sun, always good watering, good fertilizing too. I do use the down-to-earth fertilizers a lot, very consistently. In the ground, sometimes if you guys are doing sauce tomatoes, it's really important. If you're doing San Marzanos and you're doing Big Mama and Giant Garden Paste and Italian Heirloom, add a calcium source. And so sometimes I'll use a fertilizer like the Down to Earth Bio Live that has more crab shell and shrimp shell, or I'll use gypsum. Throw a couple gypsum, handfuls of gypsum around the plant because it's a good source of calcium, because the longer sauce tomatoes need more calcium developed. So that's with tomatoes. So good source, good selection of them still right now, but don't wait. I'm always looking about mid-March to about mid-April. But when you get into May, it's getting late and you're not going to get a good harvest until all the way into late summer. So now, always like April, beginning April, mid, we're a little earlier this year, so I can get started earlier. And then that's the same thing with peppers. I didn't bring a lot of peppers up. I just brought a better bell up. And so all the peppers, with growing peppers, don't crowd them. So like right now I'm planting shishitos, I'm planting green bells, red bell like Red Beauty, orange bells like Orange King. I like a lot of the chilies too. Like I have Emerald Fire. This is such a good variety of jalapeno. This is one of the hotter jalapenos. It's like one of the smaller types. Sometimes they call them Traveler series, and there's different, but these are the little hot ones. So this is the one for making salsa, but I'm always amazed on how much this one produces. So, and then I'm getting serranos, I'm getting all the hot peppers like the habaneros and the Scotch bonnets. And again, with these, just like tomatoes, give them a little space, put them in full sun. If you do them in a container, you don't have to do as big of a container. Maybe 12 inches, 14 inches, fertilize. That's really important. With tomatoes and peppers, fertilize every 3 to 4 weeks with a handful of down to earth and water them in good. Once you see the fruit the size of like a little gumball, don't feed anymore. The plants have enough food in them. If you keep feeding all the way to harvest, you're not going to get a good shelf life with your fruit. So that's important. Eggplant, same thing. You know, I brought up some of the Japanese long, which is a good grilling eggplant. The classic eggplant, Patio Baby is a good one. I brought up Patio Baby. The classic one though people love is Black Beauty. So Black Beauty is that really large, big eggplant, real meaty. The one for really more eggplant parmesan. So if you're cooking, grilling with the Japanese long, they're a good grilling variety, but this is your traditional eggplant parmesan, really good. So Black Beauty, which sometimes they call like a New York variety. Treat them like tomatoes, treat them like peppers, give them room, stake them if the fruit gets heavy, and fertilize them. water them, and just make sure they get sun. All of these summer vegetables want sun. They're not shade lovers. Now is the time for zucchinis. This is a good one. This is ball, so you can start doing your zucchinis. This is this is one of my favorites, and it doesn't seem to get powdery mildew. I don't know if you can see this, but the leaves are variegated. Give zucchinis room. They can get about 3 feet by 3 feet, so give them room. If they get too big, put them off in your landscape. Don't put them in the garden. I do that with artichokes too. If artichokes get too big, don't put them in your raised bed because they're going to take over your whole raised bed. So give them room, a lot of water, good feeding. It's really important that you draw in the bees because zucchini are really bee pollinated. So marigold flowers, there's a basil that I love called African blue basil. So you want to draw the bees in so they help pollinate the flowers, because sometimes they'll show a fruit and the fruit will rot out because that flower is not pollinated. So they really need the bees around to pollinate the flowers. So, and fertilized watering, they grow quick. Some of the other zucchinis, I do them later when it's hotter, but right now I'm doing like the little 8-ball, I'm doing the patty pans, I'm doing the regular zucchinis. The Mexican zucchinis are good, the Black Beauty, there's some gold. So now is the time to plant them, but give them room and give them water. And peanuts are one of the most interesting plants. They flower, and the flowers turn around and push themselves back into the ground, and that's where they develop their peanuts. And so, but they're really like, if you guys get into growing sweet potatoes and peanuts, they take a long time. So you can plant them now, but you're probably not going to harvest them until like September. So they take a long time. But peanuts are fun for the kids because you can put them in pots and they'll take off. Cucumbers are coming in. This is the Japanese cucumbers. This is suolong. So one of the things when you get into Japanese cucumbers, Armenian cucumbers, they love to climb. So give them a big trellis. If you got a trellis at 6 to 8 feet by 3 feet, they love to climb all the way up that trellis. And so that's important. The little Persian cucumbers and some of the dwarf cucumbers, they really don't need to be trellised. They can just run around the ground. Sometimes I plant them near my tomatoes and just let them run around on the ground. I plant beans too. I'll do the French fillet beans. I'll do the regular string beans. There's so many. There's like Kentucky Wonder, and there's Blue Lake, and there's Emery Wright, the hardcott or the fillet beans. There's nickel fillet beans. There's so many, but I plant them now, and I like to do the bush beans, so I tend to put them on the edge of my garden. If you guys have a raised bed, you could put them on the edge of the garden, mix in some strawberries and do some other stuff. And so that's the one thing, always with the border. And another thing, if you guys are building your raised beds right now and planting, freshen up the soil. Sometimes I'll do Harvest Supreme to bulk it up. I'll come back in with Malibu compost and worm castings, and I'll fluff up the soil and loosen it out. If it's not draining good, I'll add a little bit of pumice, maybe like an 8-quart bag. You always want it to drain. I do a tiering effect. So the lowest stuff is going to be in the front. Strawberries, beans, anything that's going to be low, even like herbs like thyme. In the middle, I'll do peppers, eggplant, and then basil. And in the back, I'm doing tomatoes, and I could do a trellis of cucumbers. Mix up your garden too on what you like planting. You know, that's really important. Strawberries, my favorite. I love Seascape. This is a 1 gallon. But I love Seascape. Seascape is one of my favorite varieties because it's a good everbearing variety of strawberries. Strawberries are day length sensitive. So some varieties, as the days get longer, they stop fruiting. So like the June bearing types, like Sequoia is a traditional June bearing. It will fruit really good in April, May, but then as you go into June and July, it will stop. So that's the one thing. With the everbearing types, they fruit more later into spring, summer, and even fall. And what's cool about this variety that a lot of people don't know, I've been to a lot of commercial growing grounds and even where you pick your own strawberries. And one thing that the growers always tell me is Seascape doesn't produce a lot of runners, so it puts an energy into more fruit. So that's good. And you always pick them when they're really ripened, really red. So when you're picking strawberries, flip over the back, and if it's white, leave it on the plant because strawberries don't ripen good when they're off the plant. So always look at it if it's red on the front, and then flip it over. If it's like a crimson red on the back, time to harvest them. And the main thing too is strawberries like a lot of water, so good drainage and regular fertilizing, so that's important. So I got Seascapes, I do Ozark Beauty, I do Chandler, I do a little bit of Sequoias. If you want more of a staggered just harvest, mix up like 4 varieties, but this is one of my favorites if I had one to choose from. That's with the fruit, with the vegetables, and there's so much more. I mean, we're getting in so much stock right now, but now's the time for your summer vegetables, so don't wait. Right now, we're really going into herb season. So herb season is huge right now. Basil is really big. One of my favorite varieties of basil, I love Prospera. Prospera is a good variety because it doesn't get downy mildew, because sometimes basils can get downy mildew and pinch it a lot. So a lot of times when I'm harvesting, I'm pinching off the top, and then I like to see where the stem is. I take the leaves and then I can put it on pizzas or in marinara. I love the smell. This is your traditional clove basil. So you could do it for pestos, you can put it in your marinara sauce, you can do it pizzas. I make my own pizzas and I love the Prospera. The cinnamon basils are coming in. I'll be getting Tulsi, all the African blue and the lemon basil. And when you get into some of the bigger leaf basils, though, I will tell you that are from Italy, like the mammoth, they can be different flavor. So you got to watch with some of them. The ones that are big leaf, they call them lettuce leaf types. They can have more of a black licorice or an anise. So that's why I go more for the Italian sweet basils, clove, and more of that fragrance, where when you get into some of the really big Italian leaf varieties, the big leaves, you got to watch, you know, because they'll be anise. All your basils are coming in. Lemon basil, lettuce leaf basil, sweet basils, all of them. So I like the African blue basil too when we get it in. It draws the bees. It's not as much of a culinary variety, but you got some good basils coming in. So what other herbs are we doing? So we're doing the chives. So the fine leaf chives, the onion chives, and the garlic chives. Chives are a really strong perennial that will come back year after year. Wherever you plant them, just make sure the soil drains, because if it stays too wet, they'll rot out. And they like a good amount of sun, but well drained. Dill. The fern leaf dill is my favorite. So if you guys are making like homemade pickles or you're putting it on salmon, I like the fern leaf. It almost has sort of a grayish blue color to them. And it's good for the caterpillars too, because there's certain types of swallowtails that will lay their eggs on the dill. We got the lemongrass. Oh, I love the lemongrass. I love lemon verbena and lemongrass because I put it in green tea. You can cook with it, but I love to put this and cut it up into green tea. And we're getting more of the parsley too. I love fresh parsley. So this is a Japanese parsley called masuba. So we're getting in the masubas are coming in. I love the regular parsley too. Sometimes parsley, if you live in a hot area, put it in partial sun. If it's too hot, parsley doesn't like it where it's really, really hot. So it likes dampness, moisture. I sometimes put it near my apple tree where it gets some afternoon shade. So this is just your Italian flat leaf, and I'm getting some good curled leaf. I always tend to talk about my favorite varieties of stuff. I love the Mexican oregano. I love the Mexican oregano. So again, I put this on pizzas and marinara sauce. I love the oregano. So the Mexican oregano is really good. I love the strawberry mint too. This I just like for the fragrance, and sometimes I do put it in tea. Don't put it in the ground. Mints, put it in a pot with good potting soil, because they'll take over your yard. They'll root everywhere. So don't put mint in the ground. The spearmints and all of like the mojito mints and all those mints. Sometimes with mint, you do got to watch out, because some of the English mints can be very bitter. So always smell them. If you like sweet mints, that's more of like some of the Moroccan and Mint the Best and Kentucky Colonial. But some of the English mints can be very strong. And then you got peppermint, like chocolate mint and stuff like that. I love Provence. This is my favorite lavender. This is actually a cross between an English variety and a French variety, so they call it intermediate. This is the one they use a lot commercially for the oils, and it blooms great, but it doesn't bloom until more late spring, early summer. But this is Provence. Provence is my favorite. Sages, so the cooking salvias, like the Bergarten and the gray leaf and all of them. So now's the time, think of all your herbs. So now's the time to start really keying on the herbs. Rosemary, I like a variety called Barbecue. Barbecue is a great culinary variety. I like lemon, variegated lemon thyme. This you can put in cookies and drinks. And then the traditional thyme is your English thyme. They got this labeled summertime, but this is your traditional English thyme. So now's a great time for all your spring annuals that will go really long. Right now, think of all your cosmos and your marigolds, and we're getting petunias. And I like the cosmos. Is this Sonata? Yeah, this is one of my favorite varieties of cosmos. Cosmos just want full sun and a lot of water, but they're great bloomers. That's Sonata. Sonata is a medium-sized variety that will get about 2 feet tall. I love the garden phlox. Even though we don't always do good with the perennial phlox here because we don't get cold enough, but I love these little annual garden phlox. This is a variety called 21st Century, so they're just little clumpers and they bloom for a long time, so I love the phlox. There's so many other annual flowers that we're getting in, like the sweet alyssum is great, marigolds are great, I'm getting in a lot of petunias. We're starting to wind out of the winter stuff, so winter stuff's sort of done. Now we're really into the spring stuff, and my impatiens are coming in and all my annual stuff. So those are the annual flowers. Annuals always make sure they get a lot of sun and a lot of water because they grow quick and they want nutrients and water, and these always want full sun. So those are the annuals. Moving on to the perennial side, we're starting to get some good perennial color in. So I really do like this. This is a newer geranium to me. This is called Caldera Lavender Glow. Look at the flowers on this, and it looks like it's one of those crosses, which it's a cross between ivy geraniums and zonal. So it's sort of like a semi-rambling little plant, but these have such large flowers, but they almost come out a lavender color and they'll fade down to a white. But yeah, this one is Lavender Glow. Really sturdy plants, really good plants. And then so now we're seeing Bidens come in. Sometimes this is the compact form, Bidens, Bidens. This is a great perennial, so great for your garden, great for the butterflies. So we're starting to see more of the butterfly plants come in too. I like the gypsophilias, and this is gypsy white. And so gypsophilias, this is the dwarf one. So this is the one they don't use for cutting, but this is great for the garden though. You can put these around roses and put them around in your flower garden, and they're just a great, more bushy, compact variety of gypsophilias. Got agastaches. These are great. We get a lot of varieties of these as we go into spring, and this is a blue one. I think this is Blue Fortune. Agastaches really draw the hummingbird. So the other name for them is hummingbird mint. And they have a really fragrance to the leaves. They don't get really big. They might only get 1.5 feet, maybe 2 feet tall at the most, but great for the hummingbirds because they get long fluted flowers, and the hummingbirds can really draw the nectar out of the flowers. So remember agastache or hummingbird mint. All the daisies too, like all the Marguerite daisies, and all the daisies are coming in. So this is a variety called apricot. Aramis apricot. They get very bushy. They'll get maybe 2 feet tall and maybe 2 to 3 feet wide. Keeping them more compact. Don't crowd them. Let them get bushy, and always light trim them periodically. Every couple months, even when they're done blooming a little bit, just take an inch off the growth and light trim. I usually will take a pair of hedge trimmers and I'll turn them upside down and I'll light shape. And you'll get such a really good shape on them, and then they won't get leggy and they'll keep blooming. So that's important for the daisies. Periodically light trimming. Lavenders take good to light pruning too, because then they'll stay more compact and they won't get so lanky, where some perennials get very lanky because people never trim them, but they either prune them too hard or they don't prune them at all. So that's but light pruning and sort of maintaining the garden is important too. We're getting in the cigar plants. These are little kufiyas with the bright orange flowers. Another hummingbird plant, good perennial for the garden. They get very bushy, 3 to 4 feet tall by 3 to 4 feet wide, so good variety. We're seeing the Russian sage come in. So this is crazy blue. These are great spring bloomers. And so yeah, so really good one. We get a lot of different plants from Native Sons. Native Sons is always one of my favorite growers. They're a good grower up in the central coast. They have such good perennials. So I love the yarrows. So this is Kelia or yarrow, and this is moonshine. Moonshine is more of the yellow flowers, and the butterflies love yarrow. So sometimes it takes a little extra water to get going, but the yarrow is great for a perennial flower garden. Spindrift is more of a smaller form of Santa Barbara daisy, so it doesn't get as tall. So some Santa Barbara daisies will sort of take over your yard. This one doesn't. That one stays small. Another favorite flower that is a great bloomer for spring, people get them confused with catnip. Catnip is what they feed the cats, and this is catmint. It's in the same family, Persian blue, but this is more of a compact variety, maybe 8 to 12 inches tall and maybe about 1 foot to 2 feet wide. And this blooms in spring. You cut it back in the winter time, but it comes strong in the spring with your blooming. So that's your catmint. So they're all in the family Nepeta, and there's some good ones. There's Six Hills Giant. There's a whole bunch of them, and there's a few dwarf ones, but they're great spring bloomers. Oh, these are Angelonias. Angelonias are really good for summer blooming. So if you plant them right now, they'll go all the way through summer. They're not really a perennial, but they're almost a perennial. But guy, I love the flowers on them. Yeah, this is Archangel series, and this is Cherry Red. So there's some good ones of the Angelonias, you know, but great bloomer, more upright, not real tall, maybe 1 foot, 1.5 feet, but boy, they bloom. Another one that I like, and I get a lot of people requesting some of the New Guinea impatiens. They consider these sun impatiens, but you know, I still put them in some shade. If they're in too much heat, they're gonna really struggle through summer. So that's one thing with the New Guineas is sometimes I get them a little shade. Some of the green leaf varieties can handle more sun. This is a white variety. They can grow up to about 1.5 feet to 2 feet tall or more. They last longer if your soil drains better. If your soil doesn't drain, they might only last a season. They don't come back. So if your soil drains really good and you get them in partial sun, they'll last. I've seen these last for 3-4 years. So yeah, this is the white variety. And then there's the candy stripe one. This is compact purple candy. See, these dark leaf varieties, they can't handle the sun, even though they call them sun impatiens. So a little bit of shade sometimes in the afternoon can really help them. And then another thing that we're going to be getting were salvias and more penstemons, and all the perennials are going to start coming in. And that's for April, you know, so April is really big. I wanted to touch on the shade plants. Coleus are great. I love the Coleus. I like the big leaf. Look at the size and the color of this leaf. These are the Kong series. I love like the Kong series because you'll get chartreuse, you'll get red, and it almost looks like velvet. So these, we just treat them as summer annuals. You can actually cut them and take cuttings off them, but love the Coleus. Coleus is great. I love this Abutilon. This is like a tiger eye Abutilon. These are all shade, morning sun, afternoon shade, but this one will get tall, but look at the flowers, look like little bells almost, like almost little lanterns. So I love the Abutilon. This is a little cherry variety called Lantern Red. And then we go into other perennials. I love the heucheras, the coral bells. This is a peach variety, Indian Summer Boysenberry. Good for the shade. I like the Listomachia. This is like the Goldilocks, and the Goldilocks are so good for a ground cover. When you get into shade gardens, you can brighten them up by chartreuse, yellow leaf plants, or white flowers, because that brightens it up and it will actually reflect light. So sometimes if you have a garden that feels really dark, do white New Guinea impatiens, do some of the Goldilocks moneywort, because it will brighten up. And then even like the peach colored heucheras, echinaceas. Echinaceas are so great, like the purple coneflower. This is white. This is a great variety for the butterflies. We got in our California milkweed. So this is your Asclepias fascicularis. And I like to plant a couple together because the larvae of the monarchs really will chew these down. But yeah, we finally got our first shipment of milkweed. So now's the time to plant. Monarchs are going to be out. They're going to be laying their eggs soon as we go more into this month and next month. So start planting your milkweeds. It's not too late. You have to plant them before you really go more into next month. So your bulbs, so all the summer bulbs like the dahlias, the gladiolas, the Asiatic lilies, the tuberous begonias, you want to do it now. So I brought some of them up, and so I love the dinner plate dahlias. And so you can put them in a pot. Make sure you get watered. I used to plant them between roses. Sometimes I like to use little tomato cages to keep them up so they break really easy. So this is a variety called Café au Latte or Café au Latte. This is a French variety, so get them in the ground now. This is another dinner plate variety. This is called Fimbriata. So Fimbriata, dahlia. This is more, has a little bit of an anemone look to it. So And I like the bulbs that we get because we get 2 in a pack, and they're whole clusters. When you're buying dahlias, if you just get one little tuber, it can take 2 or 3 years to bloom. So that's why this is called Billy Bow. And so another yellow one. There's so many varieties. There's drumstick dahlias. There's decoratives. And so with the dinner plates, it's good to sort of stake them because the flowers want to fall forward because it gets so heavy. But guys, there's so many varieties of them, so plant them. Don't wait. If you have the bulbs, if you're buying the bulbs, the rhizomes, plant them now. Don't wait. April is a good month. We're getting in a lot of the tuberous begonias, doubles. These are double begonias. So these are the tuberous begonias. They're great in a container or hanging basket because tuberous begonias will bloom all summer long. So they like a warm, shady area. They don't like too much heat in the afternoon, but morning sun, dappled light in a warm area. But I like to put them in hanging baskets, or sometimes I'll mix them with fuchsias, but I love to have them in a fast draining potting soil, and just make sure they get watered, but don't overwater them. But whatever potting soil you use, sometimes I add a little extra perlite to get it to drain faster. And then the stargazers, this is one of my favorite Asiatic lilies. I love the stargazers. This color, always my favorite. It's more of like a pinky color with some white highlights. So all your stargazers, and then you can do your gladiolas and all that stuff. So like I was saying, don't wait on your bulbs, you know, because now's the time you want to get them in. If you wait any longer, it's going to take too long for them to bloom. You might be going all the way into fall. And so that's with the bulbs. And when you're planting them, if you put them in the ground, break up the clay with a good planting mix. And if the clay is really heavy, I'll get a bag of cactus mix and I'll blend it in, because that cactus mix is going to have a little sand. It's going to help keep that clay from binding up. And you can use a little gypsum. Gypsum helps over time. It won't work overnight. You know, so gypsum will help break clay down, but it's not going to work overnight. It could do it in a couple years, but it helps break the salts down if the clay are binded by salt. So that's important. Now moving into seeds. So what kind of seeds is David planting? All of them. I could talk about seeds all day long. You can still do your peppers. You can do your purple pepper, bell peppers. I'm doing the larger jalapenos. This is a Megatron. All the serranos. So and I could still do tomatoes. I brought up just a regular beefsteak. I brought up sun gold cherry. You can still do your tomatoes from seeds. It's not too late. Some of the heirloom varieties might run a little bit later, but and your zucchini. You can do your zucchinis right now. This is Max's Gold. I like that one. I really like the little Mexican zucchinis because they're smaller fruit and they're real tender. So I can do zucchini right now. Beans. Beans you can do from seeds. I brought up a French filet bean called Ferrari. I brought up a bush gold bean called Gold Rush. I brought up a pole bean called French Gold. And so there's a bunch of them, but plant them now. You don't even really have to start some of these in containers. With some of the bigger seeds like the beans and the cucumbers and the zucchinis, you can direct sow them in your garden because we're starting to warm up enough at night. So your cucumbers, oh, I love cucumbers. Your Mediterranean cucumbers, like your Persian cucumbers, you can do right now. These are like an Armenian. I love the Armenian cucumbers because they're real tender from seed. They like to climb. These are a great variety for containers. They're called bush slicer. So it's a little regular cucumber, but always with the regular cucumbers, pick them quick because sometimes as they get older, they get bitter. So pick them fast so they're still tender. Space Master is a good example of don't let them get really big and get a lot of seeds and be tough. So, and then the little mini munchers are good. You got Telegraph, which is an English cucumber. You got a good Petite Pickles French variety from Renee Shepherd Seeds. More Persian cucumbers, green fingers. You can still do your root crops, just don't wait. I can do carrots right now. This variety is called Midas, King Midas. With the root crops, you can see we're not hot enough, so you can still do them. Carrots you can do, beets you can do, radish you can do. And so these are Merlin beet, which is a good beet, a good roasting beet. Gourmet Gold, this is just called golden. I love the gold beets. And I got a whole bunch of radishes. So cherry bells are the little radishes that tend to be spicy. Good, but they can have a little kick to them. The Easter egg blend is good. So don't wait. Keep on doing your seeds, but do your root crops right now. You could do a little thing of carrots. You can do, moving into flowers, calendulas right now. Calendulas are good. I love doing sunflowers. Now's the time to do it from seed. This is an ornamental variety called Van Gogh. This is a little dwarf variety called Teddy Bear. This is your harvesting. So if you guys want to harvest your sunflower seeds, this is called Mammoth Gray Stripe. Or if you want to leave the seeds for the birds, this would produce your edible sunflower seeds. And then this is one called Sunzilla. Now some of these, they can get really big, so sometimes you got to stake them because sometimes they can blow down in the wind. Some of these can get like 9 to 12 feet tall. So as they grow, you could take like an 8-9 foot bamboo stake, push it in the ground a foot, and lightly tie it. There's a soft tie that I use for tomatoes, and I use it for the sunflowers too. And you can start doing all marigolds. You can do. We're done with the winter annuals, but marigolds. You can do petunias. You can do any of them. So that covers the seeds and the bulbs. Now I'm talking about what to fertilize right now. So April is a really big month. Feed and plant, and fertilize and plant. So that's really big right now. So one of the ones, if you didn't feed in January and February and March, feed your roses. So this is a good balanced rose fertilizer. This is down to earth. I love the down to earth products because they have really good components. So they're mainly based off of fish meal and fish bone meal, a little alfalfa, but sometimes they trace with humic acids too, so that's good. But I really do like, so this you'll feed everything. You'll feed your climbers, you'll feed your grandifloras, you'll feed all of them. I do sometimes add a little Epsom salts. If I didn't use any Epsom salts in January, I will try to get Epsom salts on the roses at least twice a year. So usually I'll do a January, Feb, and I'll do like a May, June, like a summer almost. If you haven't done it, a little bit. But remember when you're doing this, I just take my hand rake and I throw it down and I work it in with the back of the rake. I like to sort of go around the whole plant and then I water really good. You want to really soak the soil because if you don't wet the soil, sometimes the organic fertilizer will turn into dirt clods. So always, almost like you're making an emulsion out of it. So yeah, definitely with the roses, feed them now. And another thing too, you can fertilize this with everything. So it's a 4-8-4. So let me show you what that means. So 4 is your nitrogen, 8 is your phosphorus, and 4 is your potassium. So what that is your nitrogen helps out the plant in terms of giving nutrients to the new growth. 8 is for like your roots, your flowering, your fruiting. So phosphorus is important for fruit development, for flowering, and for root development. And then potassium or potash, it helps plants go through stress, and there might be a lot of different varieties of environmental stress. It might be from water, it might be from heat, but the potassium you don't need a lot of, but mainly with most flowering plants, you want the middle number to be higher. So like what they call a low, high, low. So that's important. So yeah, but you can use this on anything. Like any of the flowers, you could use it on marigolds, annuals, perennials. You can use this on everything because it's a good balanced fertilizer. So moving on, so with the vegetable gardens right now, so the veggie gardens, this is a good one for tomatoes, and this is a higher calcium, higher phosphorus fertilizer. So this is really more of your vegetable fertilizer. They call it all-purpose, but it's really more like the vegetable food because it's a 4-6-2. But when you look at it, the calcium is like 8%, so that's really important for your fruits and your vegetables. And then it has a little tiny magnesium. Sulfur helps to drop it down, little humic acids, but that's why I love these fertilizers. They're very balanced and they don't put a lot of filler fertilizers in. So even when I see this, fish bone meal, blood meal, feather meal, alfalfa, rock phosphate, lagranite, and seaweed meal. really good nutrients. So I'm not seeing a whole bunch of feather meal or cottonseed meal, alfalfa. I'm not seeing all this filler. I'm seeing good quality components in that fertilizer. So that's the vegetable one. I do like this Bio Live. I do use it a lot on my vegetables too. The reason why, this has a beneficial fungus in it called mycorrhizae, but the one thing I found with this is it has more shrimp shell and crab shell in it, so it really does help out with the calcium and the phosphorus. When I've used this, I've never gotten blossom end rot on any tomatoes. So this is a good one because they do add extra crab shell and shrimp shell in there. And then again, like I said, the mycorrhizae, the mycorrhizae, it's symbiotic with, they create a symbiotic relationship with the roots. So sometimes they colonize the roots and they help the plants take up more nutrients. So really important, but I love mycorrhizae based fertilizers, and that's a good one for that. Moving on with citrus. If you didn't feed your citrus in January or February or March, feed them now because they're going to start putting a lot of growth. They're flowering. So this is a good balance fertilizer. So oranges, grapefruit, lemons, limes in a container. I don't really overdo it when I'm putting down the fertilizers. I might do like a handful or two per plant. I'm always working it in. I do like on older plants to sometimes top dress over it with Malibu compost or worm castings. I don't put it real thick, but sometimes I'll throw a couple handfuls and I'll work it in because that sometimes helps the fertilizer get wet and helps it break down better. And you can use this on avocados too. Avocados use it because it's more of a mineral base. So I guess that's the biggest thing between this and other fruit tree fertilizers. See, when you look at it, this has more zinc, iron, sulfur in it for the trace minerals. So that's the one thing, a lot of your citrus and your avocados, they like more minerals. So that's important. But again, I don't put a huge amount down, but I like to work it in. And I love my favorite tool in the garden. I love these Terra because they're like a stainless steel and they don't rust. So I love these, but I love to use it as a little scratching in. So great, and great for raking leaves, and I love this little tool. And so, but that's with your citrus and your avocados. Fertilize now. I do, like established trees, I might feed 3 times a year. An established tree that's maybe over 7 years old, I might give a good feed in like January, February, June or July, September, October. That's it. But if they're young trees, I do like to feed them a little bit more. And sometimes I'll feed them as much as 2 months, every 2 months for nutrients, for development. And as the trees get bigger, trunks here, leaves are here, go halfway out to the drip line or 50% out. So a lot of times on younger trees, you might be going a foot out. On older trees, you might be going 2 to 3 feet out. So that's because the feeder roots come out farther. They're not right against the trunk. So look at the age of the tree, and as trees get older, and that holds true for any fruit tree. Doesn't matter if it's peach, plum, nectarine, apples, go farther out. Don't water and fertilize right against the trunk because sometimes that will stunt the tree and the roots will stay right there. So water out farther. Like I knew an old grower years ago, and he would make these basins on these fruit trees that were 20 years old. 20-foot basin. He'd flood the whole thing, and his fruit and his harvest were so good because he got those feeder roots to go out. So that's important. And so moving on, this is your regular fruit tree fertilizer. So this doesn't have any minerals. This is just your NPK, so nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. So this would be good for peaches, plums, nectarines, apples, apricots, figs, anything, pomegranates. You don't have to feed those as much, so they're considered stone fruit. Stone fruit, again, I'd feed in March, I'd feed in probably June, I'd feed them again in October. That's it. So this is just a good balance too. So you got your fish meal, your fish bone meal, you got your baking soda, your calcium in here, your lagerbonite, some good nutrients, like some good natural growth regulators like the seaweed meal, little humic, so good balanced fertilizer. So moving on, I like to use this for blueberries. So a lot of people always ask me, what do you feed your blueberries? What do you feed them? Blueberries don't need a lot of nutrients. they like to be really acidic. And so what happens with blueberries, I do a lot of mine in containers and some in raised beds, but in the ground they can be finicky with water. But the most important thing with blueberries is they like a really low pH. They like well-drained soil too, but they like a pH around really low, like 6, 6.5. We tend to run like in the 8s, and even our water can be about 8. It's a little bit more alkaline. Cottonseed meal will give them a little nitrogen, a little phosphorus, but it will drop the pH down. That's what they like. So I had a couple that I brought up in 1 gallon. So these are some of my favorites. This is a good variety that's a tall variety called Misty. I like Misty. I really like Sunshine Blue. It was one of the first blueberries I ever grew. The dwarfs don't need a pollinator. The bigger varieties need a pollinator. So Sunshine Blue would pollinate Misty O'Neill, but Sunshine Blue has a little tart kick to it, like so the sort of like the little candies that have sort of a sweet tart kick. So that's important. But if you ever see the leaves turning like a yellowy color, chances are you're not so much overwatering it. The soil's not acidic enough. So that's why come back in with the cottonseed meal. And you can use that on strawberries and other stuff. But again, don't overdo it. You know, sometimes I'll do it about 3 times a year and that's it. And then, so moving on, gypsum, really good component. If you're growing a lot of tomatoes, this is a very good source of calcium. So when you look at it, the sulfur helps drop the pH, which is what you want in our climate. And then it has calcium, and calcium, more calcium. So very high in calcium. So if you guys are growing a lot of tomatoes, dust it around the plants after you plant and really rake it again and water good. So really good source, and good source for helping break down clay over time. So yeah, I love using gypsum. Okay, now I'm talking a little bit about maintenance in terms of fungus and insects. And so talking a lot, when we start warming up, the caterpillars are going to come out, and if you see a lot of damage, especially with the different caterpillars, there is an organic spray that I like to use that's called Spinosad Captain Jack's. This is a good one. It's really funny with me is I will spray when I see damage. I don't really use a lot of insecticides, organic insecticides in my garden, but if I see some getting really chewed up, then I will use with the caterpillars, with the hornworms and the cabbage loopers, especially on your geraniums, tomatoes. If you really have issue with tomatoes though, plant a bunch of marigolds around it too, because caterpillars hate the smell of marigolds. But I do use the Captain Jack Spinosad if the caterpillars get really bad. I like the safer organic soap for aphids and for mites. I just put a capful into a spray bottle, shake it up, and I spray really good. This is a fatty acid soap. It doesn't have any degreaser or alcohol. Made for plants, so your safer soap is good. So when you get into a problem with snails and slugs, this is a really safe form of slug bait that's an iron base. So this is not a methaldehyde base. So this is the thing. This is an iron base. So iron, you could use it around your vegetables, you can use it around your dog and your cats, and it's just a source of iron, so it's not gonna hurt anything. You really gotta watch out if you have dogs, because don't use the methaldehyde based baits like the Corys and the Deadline, and then that's it, and all those. If they get a hold of that, it's a strong stomach toxin. So don't use, if you got a dog, because sometimes they bind it with a molasses and the dogs try to lick it off the soil. So if you got a dog, I don't use the methaldehyde base, use your iron. So this one is for the snails and the slugs. And so you sprinkle it down, and as it absorbs, it gets wet, it will look like a little puddle of mold. And when they cross through it, it is toxic to them, but not anything else. So good source of iron. It just breaks down to iron in your garden. So this one is called Sluggo Plus. So this will work more for the pill bugs and for the earwigs that I have a problem right now. The pill bugs have been so bad this year. They're chewing on everything. So what I'll do is when I take my garden out, I will sprinkle this in the corner because the Spinosad will take care of them. But with all the moisture and the rain we've had late, yeah, the slugs and the snails, the pill bugs, and even the earwigs are really chewing on stuff. So this has Spinosad in it, so that will take care of more of the pill bugs. And earwigs, and so that's important. Fungus. So as we get hotter and we have the cool damp mornings and the hot afternoons, this is an ideal time for rust and for mildew. Even black spot a little bit near the coast. So especially with roses, strip off the leaves that are showing rust or you know, black spot. And then I like the sulfur spray. When the roses are dormant, I'm going to use the copper spray, but then the copper gets too strong as we get hotter. And so my favorite is the Safer 3-in-1. So this is an organic sulfur that has soap in it. Very effective for mildew. Mildew will come along and attack the new growth as we warm up in the afternoons, damp mornings, hot afternoons. Rust, same way. I spray the canes, I spray the ground. Clean up the leaves too, because rust and black spot will live on the ground around your plant on old leaves. So it gets activated. Watch how much you're watering too. If you overwater, you'll raise the humidity around them. And that can be an ideal area for fungus to thrive. So sometimes thin them out, water them thoroughly, don't keep them overly wet, use the sulfur. And other than that, that's what I do with fungal problems. And if you're fighting like rust on your geraniums, again, I'll clean those older leaves off, I'll spray the leaves with the sulfur. If we're really hot and we have a heat streak, I use sulfur when it's 75, 80. If you guys get into using neem oil, I've always found with neem, and I've been into a lot of conversations over this over the years. Neem will work, but it's more of a preventative versus when they have it. So that's one of the things I found with neem. And you got to be very careful not to burn your rose leaves when it's hot in the summertime. But there's some good forms of neem oil. I like to get more of the clarified, the filtered. There's some good neem out there, but when you do use it, it's more of a preventative measure against mildew. It won't really work as effective when they're really bad. So that's one thing with fungus. Thank you for joining me today. This is David Rizzo with Rogers Gardens. And don't forget to follow us on the social medias and watch our YouTube video on the questions and answers. And if you have any questions, ask us, because we will answer them on that format.